to the ExecMBA podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my recent conversation with Jim Collins. Jim is an executive career coach supporting working professional students here at the Darden School of Business. And he and I recently connected to talk more about his background, what he enjoys about supporting working professional students, as well as the general process and timeline for those students looking to make a career switch, that is, change function and or industry through their working professional MBA program. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. So without further ado, here is my interview with Jim Collins. Jim, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, well, thanks very much, Brett. Delighted to be here with you. Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's nice to have you back on the show. It's been a little while. How have you been doing?
Great. Family's good. Very busy with a couple of courses that we've been teaching, and of course, the class of 23 is into recruiting, trying to bring on board the class of 24. It's certainly keeps us hopping.
Yeah, I was thinking about your schedule and just trying to find time for this podcast taping. So you are with the other members of the career team helping lead the professional advancement course for the class of 2024. And fall of second year is really for those students in the program who are participating in recruiting. That's a real busy time for them. So a lot going on.
Yeah, that's the major focus for the second year students. But there are other students that are working on, trying to engineer whatever transitions or transformations in their career that they have in mind.
Well, excellent. Well, tell us a little bit more about you and your background. I recognize that you've been on the podcast before many times, but it's probably been a little while since folks have listened to those episodes. So tell us more about you and your background.
Well, sure. So my entire career has been built around organizational, executive, and management development. And I've had, I guess, three phases to it. I worked with consulting firms, mostly in that org psych, org development space. About 16, 17 years in senior executive positions with trade associations, running them. And then the last 10 years of my career, I have focused on helping on really career transition work, career transformation work, helping individuals establish clarity and direction for their whatever those transformations are. And I've decided to really dedicate this portion of my career to those seeking transitions with theirs.
And you're one of the career coaches that work closely with our working professional students, particularly our Executive MBA students. Tell us a little bit more about your role and what that looks like.
Sure. Well, as I think about the fundamental purpose of my role and what I do is enable students to establish clarity and direction for their career transformations and assist them with making whatever transitions they have in mind. And to do that, it really work on two levels. One is kind of helping them advance their thinking about the big picture career questions that they have, which is, who am I and where am I going? What's my destination? What's my vision for my career? Who do I need to know in order to, make that, advancement? What do I need to learn? And what are the pathways that I might engage in to get from where I am now to whatever that end point is? And what does success really mean to me, both now and in the future? So those are the fundamental questions. But in addition to that, working with them on helping to engineer that transformation, whatever that looks like. We tend to think of the students in three or four major categories. There are a small group that are enhancers that don't have a significant career agenda, but I'd say 95% or more of the students come here either to pivot or transition to a new role in a new company, maybe a new industry. We call them switchers. There are those that are looking to ascend within their organization to positions of greater responsibility and or find something that's more fulfilling. And then we have individuals that are looking to pursue some form of entrepreneur path, either to found a new business, to expand an existing business, to acquire a business, or maybe just to join an early stage company because they like that environment. So working with them on that, I think the transition work that we do has three major buckets. There's career education on those fundamental questions as well as transition skills. There's coaching one-on-one around those same questions and those transition skills, and then helping people get connected to explore, connected to find new opportunities, and connection with our alumni base.
One of the things that strikes me as true about many of our Executive MBA students is that they're probably exploring a few career paths at the same time. Would you say that that's fair? Or at least that's my impression from talking with the students.
So yeah, that's an interesting question. As I think about it, while maybe half the class is there to transition to something new, and maybe 40% of the class on average is there to climb, and 7% or so to pursue an entrepreneur path. The fact of the matter is almost all of them have some exploration agenda, because at the very least, when they graduate, they'd like to, whatever career path they end up choosing, they'd like to be making that choice from a far more informed perspective. So they want to step outside, their own, professional sphere, and take a look at career paths in other industries, roles, functions they might perform, just to get a better feel for what their options might be. And it's not uncommon for people to come in with several goals, and for those goals to change throughout the course of their time during the program.
Yeah, I appreciate that note, because we ask a career goal question in the application, but the question actually states, at this time, essentially what are your career goals and how does an MBA fit into it? And from our perspective, we're trying to signal that this is likely to continue to evolve, not only in the run up to the start of school, but as you are in the program, as you maybe reality test, hypothesis test, some of these things that you're considering. You get out there, you're doing informational meetings, you're applying for things, you're doing that self-discovery and investigation. We fully expect that maybe your career interests will change over the 21 months of the program.
Usually several times. So it is a journey, and it's really a treat to be associated with, a companion with the students as they go through that exploration and clarification process.
Well, Jim, I want to ask you about the professional advancement course, because for the past couple of years, the career team has really been instrumental in delivering the course. What's that been like? Have you enjoyed that experience?
Oh, tremendously. It happens. It's in quarter one, so it's one of the very first classes that the students will take coming in for the exec MBAs. For the part-time, they have a little longer runway for their program, so we put that in quarter 5, quarter 6. Roughly in the first 25% of the program. And it goes back to those fundamental career questions that the students have. Whenever I take a poll of the students, I propose 2 questions for them. First is, how many are here to leverage the MBA in order to transform their career in some material fashion? And almost 100% raise their hand for that. And then the second question is, to what extent do you have great clarity about what that transformation looks like, your destination, and how you're getting there? And almost no one raises their hand for that one. So PAC is really designed to begin the process of considering those fundamental career questions. And just to repeat, it's, who are you? Where are you starting from at this point in time? What is your vision or your destination? And who do you need to know in order to help you advance in that fashion? And then what do you need to learn? What are the pathways, the school pathways, the community pathways, the work pathways, and maybe others that you need to follow to achieve that, whatever that objective is? And what does success mean to you, both now and the longer term? And there's no ultimate answers. You don't come out of the course having finalized your answers to those questions, but you've advanced your thinking about that, and those are inquiries that I think continue throughout a student's course during the Exec MBA or Part-Time MBA program.
Well, one of the things that's also interesting to me about PAC is there's so many connections that are made amongst the students during this course. People realizing like, oh, maybe this student is working at a company that I'm really interested in, or maybe we have a similar career aspiration or interest.
Oh, that's an excellent point. It's my belief that 50% of the career support and career value the students get from coming to this program comes from their fellow students. And so we take a lot of time to try to do what we can to help build that career support community among the student body, not just within your class, but also with the second years as well. So it takes a village, I think, to help any given student with whatever the career agenda might be. And one of the things that I find very gratifying is tremendous amount of support that the students provide each other. It's a very helpful environment.
Well, what do you enjoy about working with students who are working while pursuing their MBA?
Oh, there is so much. The students are so interesting to me on so many different dimensions, but maybe in a nutshell, the fact of the matter is that there is such diversity within the working professional population in terms of age and stage of career. For the Exec MBAs, just as an example, they'll range from their upper 20s to their mid 50s. And not only are they at different ages and stages of career, they're coming from a multiplicity of different industries and different functions, and they are headed in 140 different directions. And each individual, while we can categorize them into major categories that I've shared, switchers and climbers and entrepreneurs and enhancers and whatnot. The reality is there's 140 or so very unique career quests that each and every one of them is on, and they unfold in their own unique fashion at their own time, and that is altogether as it should be. So just being part of that discovery process and transition or transformation process is just a real pleasure.
I appreciate your mentioning the diversity of students in the Executive MBA program. The range of the class in terms of years of work experience is typically 5 to 25 plus years. From a career standpoint, we share this with prospective students, but that means that people are kind of at different junctures in their career. To your point, come from many different industries. I think in the current first year class, there's 26 industries represented. There's typically over 100 unique employers, so lots of different employer backgrounds. And to your point, everybody's career goal is maybe similar in terms of category of aspiration, but yet unique to the person. I always am struck by how the career team starts with the individual. Really, you kind of have that career kickoff meeting, even typically prior to the start of school, which is it's a great first touch for the student to kind of introduce themselves.
Oh, it is. And just to speak on the career kickoff meetings, I mean, it for those listening in on the podcast, it's really an opportunity that we take an hour and 15 minutes, sometimes longer, depending upon the questions the student has, and it's our opportunity to really get to know the students intimately, and what is it, not just what their background is, but understand the whys of their career and what it is they hope to achieve, and then with those objectives in mind, to begin to sketch out a sort of preliminary action plan, what might happen and when during their time in the program to help them achieve whatever those objectives are. Of course, that all changes, but the planning is the important part, and we continue to work with them as they modify those plans to help them continue to kick the can down the road, so that upon graduation they've achieved whatever they set out to do, and achieve their reason for coming to Darden. Once again, to transform their career in some material fashion.
Yeah, one of the things that's interesting to me as I've talked with the members of the career team and how they work with students is they'll often say that, we play a lot of different roles in these interactions. We might be an accountability partner. We might be a cheerleader, encouraging the student. Can you talk a little bit about some of the different hats you might wear as you work with a student on this kind of individual one-on-one basis?
Sure. So there's a bunch. It really depends upon the student and what their needs are. But fundamentally, it's a sounding board. One thing that occurs to me, just helping them, listening to them, their ideas, and helping them put words to the issues that they're wrestling with, and then step those down into some sort of action plan or programmatic solutions that might help them, take a step or two forward. And then, of course, the landscape changes, and they've got to make new plans. But in addition to that, there's an education role. Education not only on those fundamental questions, but all the components associated with transition. Defining your gifts, your talents, and strengths, stepping those down into a professional brand or identity, putting together the marketing materials one needs to if they want to take themselves to market or climb within their organization. To think about their transformation strategy or their transition plans, to enhance their interviewing and networking skills, to negotiate job offers and so forth. There is that connection piece that I referred to earlier, where we are connecting them to relevant individuals for whatever their career quest might be, whether that's alumni, whether that's connections with employers, or companies that might connecting them with opportunities. We have a very robust recruiting function here at Darden. And as you've mentioned, for some individuals, it is challenging to find the time to devote to your career quest, and an accountability partner is always a useful thing. We do wear that hat as well.
Yeah, that's one of the things that has always struck me as nice about professional advancement course, PAC, that it's built into the curriculum, right? So as you are getting started as an executive MBA student, or as you're kind of working through the conclusion of that first year as a part-time MBA student, you have time in the flow of class and the curriculum to ask these questions, to begin this investigation that really will kind of help set you on a path to continue your career work as you go forward.
The interesting thing about that is that, and I think the challenge for the working professional students is that while for most, their primary objective is to leverage, as I said, that MBA in order to transform their career in some substantive fashion, the challenge is find the time to do so. Given the demands of the more pressing and more immediate demands of their job, their family, and of course the program itself, it's very easy to continue to defer work on your reason for being here, which is, hey, I want to do something different with my life. And so one of the exciting things about Darden, it is the only executive MBA program that I am aware of globally that actually requires you to take career classes, to work on your career while you're in the program. So it's and to the extent it does that, it's an attempt to integrate all of your multiple agendas and simplify your life as much as we can.
Well, I'm thinking about the time management aspect. If you are looking to make a transition or climb, you got to, or launch a venture, you got to find time for these things. Are there any time management strategies you encourage students to employ as they're just trying to carve out, some hours in their days to dedicate to their career search?
Well, I've attempted to do that, but the reality is, it all fails because each person is, has a very unique life situation. So, what we recommend is that you just take I like to use the analogy, how do you eat an elephant? You do it a bite at a time. So every month you're just doing something to work on whatever the relevant aspects of your career plans are. And whether that's an accountability where we check in. I have some students where we check in, every couple of weeks at just 15-minute phone call. How's it going? What are you doing? How can we help you? Others we check in on a quarterly basis. That seems to be the major tactic that we use.
Well, it's interesting to hear you talk about just like doing a little bit, maybe every day or every few days. It's a similar strategy when you talk to students about how they manage the workload of the program. You will oftentimes hear them say, don't let it build up on you. Do a little bit every day. Peter DeBear, one of the economics faculty, uses a soccer metaphor, just kind of keep the ball at your foot, but just kind of continuing to sort of do a little bit of work, and it makes it much more manageable. Good strategy for the career process too. So Jim, I want to talk a little bit more about the process of switching jobs, changing function, industry. I was struck after going to a number of executive MBA class of 2023 homerooms it seems like we've had a number of students in that class change jobs over the first year or so of the program. And we undoubtedly have some listeners who may be considering this program and thinking about their career timeline and say, well, I might want to use the full 21 months of the program, but what if I want to make a switch during the program? What does that process look like? And obviously, everybody's path is their own. But I was just curious to kind of talk with you a little bit more about what the process looks like for students who might have a more expedited timeline. So, you want to share a little bit more about that?
Sure. The interesting thing, I'm thinking of one student in particular who has already, in his first year, switched jobs twice, and he's working on a third. Now, he is unique, of course, but it is not uncommon for students to transition in the first year of the program. If I were to assign a percentage to that, I'd probably say maybe 15% are finding a new opportunity within the first 12 months or so. The process they have for that is really twofold. I mean, one is they're perusing, the job boards, or finding opportunities, they're applying. That's a low probability of success strategy. I mean, we certainly encourage people to do that, but as you know, you find a job opportunity, you apply for it. You and 50 to 500 of your closest friends are doing the very same thing. It's a bit of a black hole, so the odds are not in your favor. But this past year has been a very robust economy. A lot of hiring going on as we came out of the pandemic, so it was easier to find job opportunities in that fashion. The majority, however, are finding that next opportunity through whatever networking strategies they have. They're finding them with their classmates. They're finding them with the alumni base, or they're finding them within their own networks. We have a lot of military people that are looking to transition. Most are transitioning at the end of the program, but some sooner, and they find that next job through some sort of networking process. We work with them on those transitions. Primarily around the tactical things associated with them. The resumes, the LinkedIn profiles, the interviewing, helping them get connected with opportunities, introducing them to alumni, and negotiating job offers. Those are the primary things that we do to support them, and if they are looking to transition sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I appreciate your point around networking. And I feel like this is a steady drumbeat in all of these career episodes that we've had on the podcast, is that networking is an important part of any job search. You have to get known beyond your resume, so to speak, or at least I think I've heard you say that before, Jim.
Yeah, get known beyond your piece of paper. So that's my mantra. So networking is a critical tool, and if I think about the transitions that people go through, some are far more complex than others. You have individuals that are, say, transitioning from the military to the private sector, or they want to switch from some industry that they're part of to another industry and maybe play a different role, and they know they want to do something in a fairly radically different fashion, but they aren't clear necessarily about who they are and how that translates to that new industry or that new role, and they aren't clear about how they will go about making that transition. So they are starting farther upstream. They're looking to explore different roles. They're looking to explore different industries. They're trying to find out whether there's a realistic path to those new industries and opportunities, and it's a multi-phase process. In that first stage, they are established some degree of clarity, and they're finding industries and functions of interest. And then the second phase typically is one of beginning to drill down into those that look like they have promise. And the third phase is then one of trying to engineer whatever that transition is that you have for themselves to actually do the job search. Now, the standard model that we have unfolds over 20 months for that. But if we're accelerating that, the students usually have greater clarity about the role and function that they want to perform. They're just looking for a different location to do that. It might be in the same industry, it might be a different industry, but they're frequently going through more of a two-phase process where they're just exploring those target industries, and then quickly moving to some sort of job search, phase one or phase two process.
Well, it feels like networking is just omnipresent throughout this process, because even once you start applying for jobs, you're continuing to engage those networks and keeping them posted about the progress you're making.
Yeah, I think you're networking to explore broadly. You're networking to explore in a more focused fashion, and you are networking for your job search and transition. So, the substance of your informational meetings at each stage is going to, and the content or the agenda items, the questions that you're asking are going to change depending upon where you are in the process. But the networking process itself is instrumental in every step along the way.
One of the things that's always struck me as really interesting about the support that you provide students is that you help with everything from just getting started to negotiating an offer, or, okay, great, you got good news. Let's figure out if this is something you'd want to do. Is there opportunity to sort of change these numbers or negotiate for other things? The negotiation piece strikes me as really, really interesting. And how do you approach counseling students on, okay, let's look at the offer. Let's think about where there might be some opportunity here?
Sure. It depends upon the student's position, their leverage. The typical. I mean, if you're a superstar, if you're a rock star, if you're a high-powered Wall Street financier, it's a far more transactional process, where it's kind of a win-lose. I'm trying to maximize my return. But in a typical negotiation, you're really trying to establish a collaborative relationship with your employer and your hiring manager. So fundamentally, we suggest people, they get the offer. You take a few days to look at it, think about it, and then focus on, two things. Number one, what are all the wonderful things about this job? What are all the wonderful things about this offer? And certainly maybe leading with communicating that. But what are the, one, two, three things that you're hoping for, something different? And the way you approach it is kind of a collaborative, looking for a win-win solution where you are seeking first to understand, the reasons for the offer, sharing that you're hoping for something different, and being able to specify what that is, and then asking if there's any flexibility, around those specific things. Who knows how the hiring manager or the recruiter will respond, but the conversation unfolds from there.
Well, what do you enjoy about working with students on their career transitions? I mean, as you mentioned, every student is their own situation, their own case.
Well, the uniqueness, of course, is one part of that. But I think the thing that is also very gratifying is that process of discovery that the students are trying to get their arms around. And in many cases, these transitions or transformations are complex. There's a tremendous amount of uncertainty. You don't control a lot in the process. You don't control the availability of opportunities. You don't control the hiring decisions of other people or the promotion decisions of other people if you're climbing. If you're starting your own business, or trying to launch that, there it is a process of effectuation where the pathways are not specified. So I think it is the thing that I enjoy perhaps most about this is taking on and working with students around that tremendously ambiguous situation, establishing clarity, as I said, clarity and direction in the face of that, and then working through that process to achieve whatever those goals are. Oftentimes, those goals aren't clear from the beginning, or what that end state looks like, and it's a good day in a career coach's life when people are able to land whatever that next opportunity is, or that achieve that promotion or that move within to a more fulfilling role within their organizations, or to begin the launch of their business.
Well, I believe you also have a counseling background. Is that right, Jim? If I'm thinking about your educational background, is that helpful to you in the work that you do?
Yeah, I think certainly to a certain extent, because there's certainly an emotional component to this process. It's not just a transitional transactional matter of fact process. So I started my career, if you go back far enough, as a clinical psychologist. I had a master's in that. I was at one time in my life a licensed professional counselor. I've let that lapse because it's not necessary to keep that up as a career coach. So that lapsed probably, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. But I find that to be, the skills associated with that, the skills of listening, the skills of reflecting back what you're hearing, the skills of helping students clarify what it is they're wrestling with, and then be able to step those down into some sort of plans, and then to act on those plans. I think all come from a coaching or counseling background. So yes, I think those skills serve me fairly well.
You're right to note the emotional aspect. There are ups and downs for students as you navigate all of this. As you were describing the sort of arc of the job search process, moving from a place of ambiguity to perhaps a place of clarity, and you find that opportunity. It strikes me as maybe somewhat similar to the MBA journey that a lot of our prospective students are on, because you ask these questions about, do I want to take this step? Do I want to do this degree? And then you start asking, maybe you test that by having some conversations with people at work and people who have taken a similar path. And then you say, okay, well, this is starting to look like a thing I want to do. What programs are out there? And so maybe you get a little bit further down that road, then you start applying. And that's also a time of ambiguity, right? You've applied, you've put applications out there, you're not certain of the outcome. I mean, and then of course, if you are admitted and decide to accept an offer, that's great. You're starting a program. It's not too dissimilar from the career process, now that I think about it.
I think there's direct parallels. Of course, then once you get accepted, once you start the program, then there's additional questions like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? And how am I ever going to make this work? But they do make it work, which is something I admire and respect about the exec MBAs.
Well, Jim, last question for you. We normally ask people for a piece of advice for our listeners, but I'm going to ask a slight variation on that. What's a favorite piece of career advice that you'd like to share with folks? I imagine, given the work that you do, you have people come up to you all the time and say, "Hey, Jim, thinking about my career. Where do you recommend that I start, or what's one tip for me?" So, what would you share?
I guess for me, this is a unique opportunity that you have as a working professional MBA student. You will never, well, in all likelihood, you will never have an arena in your life where you have the opportunity to explore and really think more broadly and advance your thinking about who you are and where you're going. And once you get out of the program, you tend to get locked into a path because you made some major fundamental decisions that have really defined, if you will, what the next 10 years of your life are going to look like. More than likely, it's not that those decisions can't be revisited, but this is an opportunity to really open your aperture, look more broadly. Step outside the gate of the garden you've been tending. Walk out into that you know field of career choices and pathways, industries and functions, and pick up a bunch of rocks. Look underneath them. See what really strikes your interest or captures your imagination. Um, and I guess, and the second piece would be to engage with your fellow students, to engage with the faculty, to engage with the career services, and to engage with the alumni, a very supportive group. to help you not only explore but think about the direction in which you want to head, and to use that network, that village, if you will, to support the transformation you have in mind.
I love the extended metaphor of, so you're in a garden, you're tending the garden, and now you want to go explore in a green field of opportunity and look under the rocks. It's very visual. I can see it. I can see it, Jim.
And I'm thinking of myself when I was a 12-year-old. I would walk out in that field and pick up rocks and see what kind of critters were underneath them. But we're looking for career paths as opposed to critters.
Well, Jim, thank you as always for coming on the podcast. It's great talking with you, and thank you for sharing your knowledge, your expertise with our listeners. One of the things I really enjoy about these career conversations on the podcast in particular is that there's really like a lot of practical stuff people can take away from the conversation to really utilize even as they consider their own career paths before they may join the program. So I really appreciate that.
Oh, delighted to do it. And so if I have just a word for the prospective students that are going to be listening to this, very much looking forward to meeting with you, working with you on your career journey, helping you achieve whatever those objectives are if you come to Darden. And if you do choose to, which I would encourage you to do, to come to Darden, engage with us early, prior to matriculation. I mean, it is not uncommon to work with students to begin their career exploration and transitions well before they show up for Leadership Residency 1.
Well, thank you so much, Jim. Good luck as you finish up PAC and you work with the second-year students on really kind of a heavy operational time for them as they apply for jobs. But thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, my pleasure. Always happy to do this. Delightful to see you again, Brett.
And that was my interview with Jim Collins, an executive career coach supporting working professional students here at the Darden School of Business. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at exec, that's EXEC, MBA at darden.virginia.edu. Until next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.